welcome. Thank you so much for being here with us today for Grant Activation, Healing Through Collaboration. My name is Sage Bandicoot. I'm a project manager for Burning Man's Civic Activation Department, and I'm also one of the producers for this call. This call is a part of Burning Man's Global Activation series, which is an experimental series that we started to highlight and amplify community members and projects from around the globe that we saw doing work in these activation areas, which are arts, civics, community events, ecosystems, and today is grants. Today's topic is highlighting a wonderful project that does address healing around sexual and gender-based violence. And so as with all of our events, we remind ourselves to come to this space with openness and respect for one another. And with that, I am beyond honored to introduce a person I have the distinct pleasure of working with on a regular basis, our civic arts coordinator and host of today's call, Joe Machetta.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Sage. I'm so excited to be here. Welcome to Healing Through Collaboration. I am Joe Machetta, Civic Arts Coordinator for Burning Man, and I'll be facilitating the event with the speakers today. Like Sage said, these events are meant to inspire community activation. And when we ask ourselves which projects we want to amplify through these calls, one of the things we consider is what seems relevant to the world at this moment. As we are hopefully coming out of a global pandemic, we considered what the world might need right now, and we thought about healing. And that brought us to the Burning Man Global Art Grantee project, Heal Her, which we're highlighting today. Heal Her stands out as a unique model for healing through community, which could be replicated in other ways. Again, this is a participatory event, and we want to explore what interests you the most. And so please just use the chat function. I'll be collating questions and try to get as many into the Q&A as we move along. I think that's it. I'm going to pass to our first speaker, Lena Chen.
Hi, Joe. Thank you so much for that introduction, and hi to everyone. It's really amazing to see some familiar faces in this virtual room. Yeah, to get started, if you are interested in sharing your opinion of what healing consists of, we'd love to hear just like a one sentence, one word definition that you can drop into the chat as I and the other speakers introduce ourselves. So my name is Lena Chen, and I'm a Chinese American artist currently based in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which is the ancestral land of the Lenni Lenape, the Shawnee, and the Haudenosaunee people. And I'm the co-founder of Heal Her, along with Annick Delphine, who is a German-based artist. When we first started this project back in 2018, it was just two women with an idea, and I am astonished at how it's grown. A lot of this work has come out of my personal experiences as a survivor of revenge porn and cyberstalking, and the project in many of its iterations across the world has been led by other survivors as well. I'm going to give my other speakers a chance to introduce themselves now, and then we can get started with a short presentation.
Hi. It took a little. Hi, thank you, Lena, and thank you, Sage, and thank you, Joe, for the introduction. I'm Zarahlena. I'm a Mexican-German artist and yoga teacher, and I joined Heal Her right from the beginning. I saw how it started with little events and how it started to grow and to expand worldwide. And in 2018, spring 2018, I organized together with Lena in Mexico City the first festival, a 5-day festival with art and healing projects that were happening in, I think it was, if I don't remember bad, it was 5 different locations all around the center and south from Mexico City, where I grew up. Mexico City is the Valley of Mexico, which was inhabited before by the Mexicas, also known as Aztecs. And now I'm based in Berlin, and I'm gonna give the mic to Suzanne.
Hi, everybody, and thanks for your Great introductions. I could have heard more. I'm always interested in people's stories. So I'm Suzan Lemont. I'm originally American. You can hear me, right? Yeah, okay. I'm really originally from the US, but I've lived in the Netherlands for 25 years. And I'm an intermodal expressive arts therapist. And that means I use all the different modalities of expressive arts in a sort of a psychotherapeutic context. And I want to just, I'm going to take maybe just a smidge longer than my colleagues to say something, to introduce myself. Between the ages of 10 and 13, I went through extremely intense trauma. Sexual abuse and trauma. And I'm from a very small part of the US, very small state, rural, not from, I moved around a lot, but that's where we lived at the time. There was absolutely no one that I could tell what was going on. This was in the 60s, early 70s, and there just was no mental health. This topic was never, ever talked about and never shared. And it was through my poetry and later on theater and then later on dance that I learned to channel everything that had happened and transform it so that I could function reasonably normally in the world. So when I started training to become an expressive arts therapist, I really understood from the inside out the power of witnessing and sharing stories. So I've been involved with Heal Her for almost from the beginning, not quite, but very soon afterwards. And it started with just hosting some circles in my studio in Utrecht, the Netherlands, where I live. And I always have a lot of ideas, and I very quickly realized that we needed to perhaps give our facilitators more ground to stand on and more safety, and help to create and weave a really more complete healing experience if possible. So I am now the director of facilitator training, and we're focused on, one of the aspects we're focused on now is bringing the methods of creative expressive arts and the power of art to the communities that need them, that really need them, and where there is not adequate training already in place or accessible training. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. So I'm going to just start sharing some images documenting the work that we've done since 2018 with the support of the Burning Man Global Arts Fund, as well as the support of really hundreds of collaborators and community members all throughout North America and Europe. So hope that shows up clearly, this image. This comes from our summer solstice event in London in Wick Woodland, which is an urban forest in the city in the summer of 2019. And I want to share this image because I think it represents so many different parts of the project coming together, being together in a talking circle format, which is a practice originally related to Indigenous people who would come together for celebration, for mediation, both in order to share in joy and in order to share in difficult emotions. And this is a format that's been used by many people over time, and we found it to be such an effective way in order to approach really difficult topics related to sexual trauma and gender-based violence. And we use the circle in addition to a number of techniques that are inspired by the expressive arts, and that are a recognition of the fact that trauma is a process that wounds on so many different levels, and therefore the healing also takes place in many different levels. And healing we approach through a variety of means. We look at what does it mean that trauma lives in the body? How do we heal on a psychological level through the expression of art? How do we heal on a spiritual level through this coming together? And we've worked in various contexts through workshops, through events in public spaces, through performances, often with people who don't necessarily have a formal, art background, but led perhaps by facilitators who do. And one of the beautiful things about the project is that we realized as our circles and our ambitions expanded beyond those initial gatherings, which were led mostly by myself, I realized that there was a real need for support, not just for the people attending our events, but for the facilitators of our events. So that's kind of where that's where Suzanne's work comes in supporting the facilitators training. And this format of working together in collaboration with local communities is something that Zarahlena really pioneered. This documentation is still from London, and it features some activists who were working with Extinction Rebellion and with various environmental rights movements who collaborated with us because we saw a connection between the type of ecological devastation happening in the world and the type of violence happening to survivors of trauma. And we use a variety of different techniques depending on what we think fits the local context best and what our audience needs. And it's the same thing when we choose sites, when we choose people to partner with. Finally, I'm going to show a little bit of documentation from the specific participatory artwork that we proposed to Burning Man at the beginning of this journey. This is an image of Anique Delphine, who is a Berlin-based artist working in painting and sculpture and photography. And the brick that she is holding represents a story of trauma. It's a wax brick, and the wax encases an object that was given by a participant in one of our talking circles. And this object is a physical manifestation of their story, of what they went through. And we use these bricks in various performative ways during an event in Germany in the summer of 2019, carrying them in a processional with many people who were involved with our first facilitator training. And finally ending this processional at a lake that is beside a former cast iron mine. And in this lake, we decided to wash the bricks and also wash our bodies. So there are moments of collective togetherness, of being together with these stories, but also moments of solitude, of individual contemplation of what each of these bricks meant to us. Because even if the story inside didn't necessarily represent our particular story, so many of us had also gone through something traumatic and something that really affected the course of our lives. And so in carrying the bricks, it was a kind of metaphoric expression of how we carry each other's trauma. So that's something that an individual experiences on their own. Also, that becomes a part of a collective responsibility so that healing doesn't have to happen in isolation. So we washed the bricks in this lake, and we washed our bodies as well. And we used the bricks in this situation and in other contexts to create new structures, new formations, incorporating artwork and other things that have come from the workshops that we've done with the public. And I just want to emphasize that, we have taken so many different formats, but whether we're whispering into the gallery walls of some, some space in Barcelona, or we're like swaying across an urban garden in Mexico, or creating an event out here in this random lake in the countryside of Germany, we're basically passionate about finding different ways of storytelling and using the art to facilitate that process, so that people understand that there are so many different methods to heal, and that in many ways, art is a crucial component to building the tools we need for our continued survival, for our resilience. So now I'm going to pass it on to Zarahlena, who will talk a bit more about how we specifically created the festival in Mexico City, which was in many ways our most ambitious project, and really pioneered our methods of working in collaboration with local communities.
Thank you, Lena. Yeah, the experience in Mexico City was It was amazing. It was amazing how it developed. It was amazing all the people that we got to know there, and all the help and all the positive response we got from so many people. And not only in Mexico City, because we had, well, I'm coming to that in a second. The actual idea was first to do 1 or 2 talking circles like we have been doing before in Europe, in Mexico. I was in Mexico, and then yeah, we wanted to use the opportunity to expand also to Latin America. And somehow it developed so well, and we were pretty ambitious with it, that it ended up being a 5-day festival, not only with talking circles, but with an exhibition, with spoken poetry, with a party, with live music. This image, for instance, is from the spoken poetry event that ended up in a party. And we had around 4 or 5 different locations. The Mexican press would also reach to us to report and to write about the project. We did the first events in an urban garden in Mexico that is dedicated to sustainability, and as it was in London with Extinction Rebellion, this was our case, working with ecological groups and permaculture in Mexico. We did there some talking circles who were led by therapists and 2 girls who were specialized in psychodrama, also accompanied with music from a girl who used to do music for ayahuasca sessions. Those were the first 2 days. On the 3rd day, we had some yoga, and we had a few talks. One of the talk was, I think, very important as well, because it was a collective who would go to schools, to high schools, to talk with teenagers about gender violence in social media and applications like WhatsApp and some other apps that I'm not very aware, I'm not very informed of. Yeah, and this was really cool because we were a bit afraid that teenagers wouldn't attend, but at the end, a whole group of teenagers came, and I think this is very important to prevent trauma and prevent, even suicide in girls, which happens a lot in Mexico because cyberbullying is a big thing in Mexico City and in Mexico. Then we had some workshops. A girl, a therapist from Mérida, from South Mexico, came specially to Mexico City to facilitate this workshop. And on Thursday, it was the 4th day, we had spoken poetry, we had a live band, and we had a big party, because not everything has to be sad. And I mean, it's a very, very intense topic what we are working with. And at the end, it's not only through traditional methods that we can heal, but also what Heal Her wants to promote is creating community. And a party is a very good way to create community, especially if we have a goal that we had with Heal Her. And the last day was at Casa Viva, an art space in Mexico with a gallery where we held some talks and performances, like the image that we are seeing right now, performances, an exhibition, and that was the last day. We were very lucky because not only the media, the Mexican press reached to us, but also a marketing company agency that wanted to sponsor us with beer. So we got a little bit of beer to the attendees for the exhibition. And we even got our own office in a very nice place in Mexico City where we were able to work. Since we were both visiting there, it was very good to have an office, to not work at home, but we had a place where to go with a stable internet connection and a phone, and where we could also give interviews. Yeah, well, that's a bit about Mexico City. And this way I'm trying to organize my thoughts in my mind. We created a big community because we were working with so many different artists, facilitators, healers, and companies and press and everything that created this sense of community and helped us to expand somehow and to take these practices also to the next events. Yeah, I think that's it for now. And I'm gonna pass to Suzan.
Wow, I actually had not seen a lot of those images from Mexico City. Most of them I haven't seen. So this is like sending chills down my spine, how amazing this actually is. So I'm gonna follow on. There's a lot I wanna say as well, but I wanna focus in on Art Lake in 2019 because so this was wait, let me go back just a little bit. So we are a collective, but it's very loose. Our collaborations, it's very fluid and open, and we don't have strictly defined roles, except that Lena is our, sort of our mom and our organizer, and Anik is our, is the artistic flower, the bud, the sort of the seed of what art she really lives, her art. And then we each do have sort of our personalities, and we add our things. And it's one of the things I really love about working with Heal Her is that it has such a range of people being invited and made space for to use their talents in their own unique way. So this is really important because every community has resources, and every community needs resources to make sure that everybody is sort of well taken care of. This is the kind of world I think most of us want to live in, and what has been kind of fragmented, and we've moved further away from this. The more modern and into technology, and with the polarization that's coming now, especially, we need healing more than ever, and we need ways that we can become a community. And the way that expressive arts therapy approaches that is that it's an anthropological perspective. We've been using the arts for at least 40,000 years. Everybody knows about African rituals, for example, and Australian Aboriginal rituals. Every culture has its own way of using all of the different art forms to bring the community together, and also to deal with what is almost unbearable. And that doesn't even have to be extra trauma. That's already just being human and suffering from loss and change. Things are always changing, and we have a hard time sometimes with this. There's natural disasters, there's all kinds of other things going on. When you layer then sexual trauma on top of that, it can really just fragment people. So in 2019, Lena applied to Art Lake to be able to go there. And it's a, I don't know if we've put the link to that in, you're seeing images from it here. It's an outdoor mostly outdoor festival, and it's art installations, and it has a lot to do with sustainability and building community. So we decided this would be a great opportunity to do our first facilitator training, besides offering lots of workshops around healing methods that wouldn't necessarily be a circle, but that would be the transformation or the channeling of feelings and experiences and stories through various art forms, voice and movement and visual art and stories, writing. And we used, as Lena said, we use the ritual circle as a sort of a base of most of our work. So we went there for, I don't know, 3-4 days. I can't remember, I wasn't there till the end. And we did a sort of amazing 4-hour facilitators training with people from our core group, or sort of the community that was coming together, but also people could just come from the festival. And we had to improvise a lot. It didn't go quite the way that we expected, but in preparation for that, we wrote a manual of the most important points and how people without a background per se in forming circles or a therapy background could do this kind of work safely, as much as you can be safe. There's no 100% guarantee ever when you're working with these kind of topics and in this setting. That manual is still there, and it's going to be expanded into a book, because we also, I think we all feel that as we become more and more fragmented and busier, and trauma is not lessening, let's say, in the world today. We're going through an unprecedented time, I think, of personal and collective trauma. And we really need to find ways to address that and offer communities to people who don't have it within their own community. So there will be a book, and we're also, it's going to probably have to unfold over a couple of years, but we're writing course materials that can be embedded into all kinds of different institutions, from a university psychology program to community arts organizations, and really grassroots ways. And one of the things I love about it is that we're trying to make it as adaptable as possible. So it's not rigid. It's not like you have to do it this way. We have the idea of a talking circle. We have several different levels or layers that healing can take place on, and one of them is the intimate circle. Another one is the festivals. There's performance art that can happen, and then there's the training that also helps to form a community and helps people to feel like there are others who want to help as well and want to offer this space where people can be witnessed. Yeah, and I think the thing that I want to say about what's special about a talking circle or storytelling circle is that the arts, just automatically, the language of the arts is metaphor and symbolism. And so it fits really well and into building a mythology that you can, it might sound strange, but kind of detach from in a way and step outside of it. It is you, it is part of your life, and you are recreating it in a way that can help you to feel safe and to express it like you couldn't, maybe. I was actually 30 before I read my story out loud or told anybody my story, anybody at all. And so what we're going for is really offering on all kinds of different levels the possibility for people to experience these tools for themselves and then to work with other people.
Thanks, Suzanne. Thank all of you. There's so much there. Beautiful work. I want to invite everybody to, if you have questions, please start putting those in the chat. These calls go quick. We will offer a kind of an overflow session if folks want to stick on. At the end of the event, we'll stop recording and we'll do another 30 minutes if your questions don't get answered. But feel free to start putting those in now and we'll get the conversation going. I'm just going to ask a few right now to get the ball rolling and leave it to the group to answer in whatever order you feel, if you have something to share. I really appreciated how you talked about how healing takes place on different levels. And we've discussed earlier in prep for this, what about holistic healing. And I'm curious if you could share a little bit about your work and what holistic healing means in the context of trauma. Maybe I should call on folks. I'll call on Zarahlena to start.
Okay, thank you. As I said, I'm an artist, but I'm also a yoga teacher. And a yoga teacher more than a therapist. So I work on a level of the yoga teachings that I've learned from different teachers around the world, and also because I'm a constant student. So holistic healing is, how to say it, like going beyond mental health. So when we want to heal, we, in my opinion, and that's also what we have been working on with Heal Her, is not only addressing it to mental health, but also to the body and to the soul. So if we want to heal, we need to go through all these stages to body, mind, soul, to the three bodies, and incorporating, because what happens in the mind reflects on the body. So it's more about healing the whole body, the whole soul. And this approach of not separating it from the mind is what holistic has been to us, to me, and how I work with yoga and recognizing what's happening with my feelings and what has been, more or less that.
Great. Suzanne, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, sure. Listen, we're all born into a community, however cohesive or fucked up it might be. We're born into communities, and we need that, to thrive, to really grow to our, full potential, not to make it too commercial or whatever. But when traumas happen, they fragment us as people, and they often fragment the communities as well. So when I think of holistic healing, I think of healing the person, but in a community context. It always has to be in relationship to where you live, or even if you've left your community of origin and you've gone somewhere else. There can be no holistic healing on your own completely. It doesn't happen in a vacuum, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. And what I said before about you need resources as well. I think it's a kind of a common thing now in some new age circles or positivity psychology circles to say, you just have to think positive, and you can overcome anything if you just have a good attitude. And I think that is just such BS, to be honest. I don't want to offend anybody who practices this, but the bottom line is we really need resources, and we need to have relationships. And if those aren't there, then you cannot even begin to think about healing, holistic healing. And so it doesn't have to be a perfect state of health or that nothing ever goes wrong. It's about the support that you have and what you can use and what you can call in. And so for me, I wrote my first poem at 9 when my dad was in Vietnam, and things were really scary for me. And I was coming to right face to face with the idea of death and lack of safety. And then I got into theater later, and then later I'm a dance movement therapist first before I became an intermodal therapist. So I realized that we cannot just address things on one level, and you have to have resources. And that's where collaboration and community really come in. So I think, I don't know if I'm addressing the question of holistic healing. Yeah, but for me, it's about being okay with your life, being not just functioning, on the minimal level, but truly feeling that you are part of something, belonging, and having the means to transform whatever it is that's weighing on you, or what's happening, as it does in life, into a form of, this is where aesthetics kind of come in a little bit. It doesn't have to be something like professional art or anything beautiful, but community art has been, holding us together, and the ritual forms for tens of thousands of years. So it's just really about recognizing that that's what it is. That form is really important. Those methods are really important, and then adapting them to what people need. And, one of the things that really bothers me in the world today, and how I grew up, is that there's millions of people now, and especially women, who are, don't have that. And so they cannot heal completely. They can have enough to eat and maybe, be reasonably safe, but to be able to heal on so many different levels, that you really need those added layers, and that community and relationship.
Great. I'm seeing a few folks touch on something that Lena mentioned in the initial part of the presentation, which was about healing doesn't often happen in isolation. I see a comment from Magda about that, and I'm curious, Lena, if you want to elaborate a little bit more about how Heal Her kind of helps people through not feeling so isolated.
Yeah, a lot of the initial work in creating groups where we could have these storytelling experiences, that was done through me, through gathering people that I knew in each city I visited. I was a nomadic performance artist at the time, so I did have extended networks, creative communities that I was part of. But what we realized is, we want this to be accessible to everyone. Right. And we want people to be able to take the format of what we do that can sometimes seem very large scale, when you're producing a festival, but to have that in their own home. And one of the things that we made clear in the facilitator's manual that Suzanne mentioned is that the type of things that happens in a bigger, well-publicized and funded Heal Her event, you can take these same strategies and implement it with your friends. And sometimes it's even more effective to have 3 people sitting in someone's living room doing this kind of thing, because the goal is not to make masterpieces of art that you can ultimately exhibit in a gallery, right? Certainly that would also be cool, and that aspect we also try to support through the project, but it's more about what is the purpose of using the tools. What can the tools open up that we wouldn't be able to normally access on our own? And I'm a big, supporter of talk therapy. It's something that helped me through my own trauma for many years. I've also done yoga for many years, and that was crucial to my healing. And there are many manifestations of my trauma, right, that I could feel in my body through the way I breathe, through how fast that my heart would beat. And to me, art is just another way of addressing both those physical and psychological manifestations of trauma. And by giving people more options, Heal Her is really trying to meet people where they're at, because different tools are going to work for different people. I'm a writer, so I'm very comfortable with text. For someone else, it might be working with the voice, working with song, working with music. And someone else might really want to have a super embodied experience where they don't have to verbalize anything about what they went through, but they can show it through the way they move. And that's why I love this project, because we're really trying to accommodate both our facilitators who have a variety of skills, a variety of backgrounds, backgrounds, and also the people who are participating in the work, so that they know you don't have to be a professional, anything, to get something from this project.
That's great. Anybody else want to add to that before I keep going? There's a few questions about format and response to COVID. So I think maybe in a kind of a two-part question, if you could describe a little bit about how you structure the events, if you modify them based on who you're working with or the skill sets of the practitioners, and then we can get into what you've done to modify in response to COVID. Who was Zarahlena? Oh, go for it, Suzanne. Whoever's ready, sorry.
Zarahlena, do you want to?
I would just want to say something short, and I think it's essential to adapt and to modify the events depending on where we are and what situation we are in. So we cannot host an event in Mexico the same way that we hosted in London. The same, now we cannot host an event or organize some activities right now during a pandemic as we did before when we could meet. So I think it's essential to adapt and to the context.
Yeah, I'll just say that so this whole pandemic has opened up in the mental health field. The idea of telehealth, has become huge. It's just kind of exploded. We actually had a training weekend planned for the last weekend in March. And then, that didn't happen. I had just bought my train tickets and we were going, and we had gathered like 15 people together, or 20 that were going to experience this weekend. I'm a little bit older. Technology is not really my thing, but I was amazed that we did a circle with our own, our own group. That same, right around that time that we were going to have that weekend, we did a 4-hour circle on Zoom. And I was a bit worried, to be honest. In the beginning, I thought, oh my God, how is this going to work? And I think if you let go of the idea that you can ever ensure 100% safety, even if you are in person, and this is something that I put in the manual, I give a lot of tips as well for what to do when things go wrong, but it's very egotistical to think that you can direct or control everything that's going to happen anyway. And I think this whole thing of doing stuff online has brought that home in a very real way. And it's challenged our creativity, but I find people, not just in our group, in Heal Her, but all over the place who are, look at this, we've gathered people together from all over the place online. So you do have to kind of craft an experience, knowing that if somebody, goes down the rabbit hole, you're not gonna be there to touch them, or and that there are things that you can use. But one of the things I wanted to say was, and I keep hammering this home in each one of the trainings that we do, it's be really clear about what you're offering. And so you don't set up expectations that can't be met. And I think this is a really important aspect of anything that you're organizing in these times online, and where people are meeting across wide spaces and are not in the same space with each other, is to, from the very beginning, look at how you are promoting it and what are you expecting to achieve from that. Set modest goals. Don't go for complete healing in one session or something like that. It's not realistic, and you're going to get yourself into trouble then if if people are expecting that and then their needs aren't met. And most people are coming into these situations with already attachment trauma from their family of origin or their parents, and then you're going to re-traumatize. So yeah, it's really about just being very realistic, simple, as simple as possible. Don't oversell it. And then, yeah, there are some things that you can do to kind of set, I always offer, if somebody really needs help afterwards, I stay on with them and look for resources near where they are, that they can, things that they can do to help to ground themselves, or so that they feel seen and feel supported. And it doesn't mean you have to hold their hand for the rest of the year, but, just in that moment that there's a real connection. And I'm like right now, because I've turned off my camera to show my face when I'm speaking, I'm seeing Zarahlena, for example, Zarahlena. And when I look at people, every time I'm on Zoom a lot right now, I am amazed at how you can actually have a very personal experience and can really make contact with people. So I think that's something to explore and to use all of our creativity in how we do that, but then set really clear boundaries and parameters.
Mm-hmm. Lena, I want to give you a chance to jump in if you have anything else to add.
No, I think Suzanne just about covered it. And I wanted to address Sage's comment in the chat, actually, about how facilitators can actually be supported given all the energy that goes into holding space for other people. And I think that this is really important during a moment when there's a much more sophisticated understanding of the vicarious trauma and the type of occupational stress that is being undertaken by a lot of health workers during this pandemic, and which has historically been, a huge, cause of burnout for people working in mental health and other healing professions. And I include activism in this because in my personal experience of activism, I got to a point where I wasn't really able to empathize with the stories that had once motivated me to do the work. And I think it's because I didn't have very well articulated boundaries between what was work and what was life. And I didn't do a good job of taking care of myself. And also, like 10 years ago, we didn't talk about these issues the way that we're talking now. So I would say that one of the best things about Heal Her is that we do offer support through the community, so that even if you're not necessarily a therapist for whom supervision is a core expectation and part of your professional practice, that you can still go to a group of peers who are doing similar work, dealing with subject matter that is also sensitive and close to their heart, and have people that you can talk through whatever stress, whatever problems or questions that you have. And I think simply knowing that there's someone else to ask those questions to is already such a source of comfort, to know that, you don't hold all the weight, all the burden, all the responsibility. I would also say that, the longer I've been doing this work and the larger the circles and the interest in the project has become, we've really begun to emphasize co-facilitation and having more than one person hold space. And I'm just very conscious also of what I do before and after events. I'm not going to go watch a violent movie or try to have a date, after I do something like this. I probably need some time by myself. Maybe I need a debriefing session with my co-facilitator, right? But this is all part of our training that we've been working on, that we've collected materials around, and I think that a lot of these practices are already in place, right? It's just that sometimes, artists don't necessarily know that this is something that could also be useful for their work.
Can I jump in here and say that we did a module on altar building as a way to tell stories, but also to ground. And I highly recommend it for everybody to learn the practice of, we think of altars as being only like religious or whatever, but an altar is a sort of a tableau or a place. It's a sacred place where you put symbolic objects and where you kind of check in with yourself, and it's a liminal space in which you can be by yourself or with other people. Altar building can also be done in groups. So I know a lot of people, who are interested in Burning Man and stuff. There's a lot of things about ritual art and installations and things like that. And I have a permanent altar that changes. It's a permanent a couple pieces of wood in my home. I have one in my studio where I am now, and I have one in our other little vacation house that we have. And we've done some things on, almost all of us practice altar building in nature. So really, I would say for all of us, connecting with nature and doing that thing of creating a little space where everything else can just kind of recede a little bit. And we have little objects that we've found or that are special to us. And then we build. The process of building that altar, of making it beautiful and right and reflect how we are feeling inside is meditative, and it's very healing.
Wonderful. I'm going to let everyone know that we're getting close to wrapping. We might do one or two more questions, and we might close with a video that Zarahlena is going to share a little bit about. We will stick around after that. Feel free to jump off, but we'll be done recording in the next few minutes after the video plays. What else do we have? Any other questions coming through in the chat? Laura Dane is jumping off. Group, anything you want to highlight that you don't feel like you've been asked yet that is important to your work?
I would just like to share that our future big dream, big vision is to have a physical space where we can really merge all of these practices and have a place to share this knowledge with each other. And to have a site where people can return to again and again to learn and to share their skills as well. And it's been a long-term dream of mine. I'm putting it out there right now because I do want it to manifest in the world. And because I think that there's something about having a community that has the opportunity to physically be present with one another. I know it's very hard to imagine right now during a time of pandemic and social distancing. But when I learned about the situation in the UK with the murder of Sarah Everard and then ensuing police violence, I looked at these protests and these vigils and was like, on one hand, I'm like, there's a pandemic. And on the other hand, I completely immediately understood why people want to be physically with each other and the power of that presence. And so there's many things we've done virtually, but I'm so looking forward to the day when we can be fully embodied in the same physical space, whether that's a temporary or permanent space, I don't know. So yeah, and if anyone wants to collaborate with us or has an interest in this work, joining our training or future events, definitely get in touch. Everything from this project has arisen from very small scale local partnerships and personal relationships with people who share in this vision.
If I can jump in just a second, I would also like to say that we want to work again in Mexico or Latin America in general. And that is also one of our dreams, to be back there, not only for holidays, but to work with this project as well. And since we are living in the States and in Europe, it's not possible for us, or at least it's not our goal, to go to another country and say, okay, we're here to heal. We want to collaborate. We want to make this community bigger. We don't want to go there to present only the project, but we want to expand. We want to make this community much bigger. So that's also one of the things that we will be working on in the future.
Wonderful. We're going to wrap a little differently this week. We'll share the video, and when we come back, we won't be recording. But for those of you who have to drop off, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you all so much.
cagada de los nos y de los contras que vienen a ensuciar el prisma de las luchadoras. No buscamos poder, no queremos dominar. Lo único que queremos, y entiendan bien, es caminar con dignidad.